Well, good morning, everybody. We are live. Chuck Holton here, coming to you from Panama. And I am happy to be down here when it looks like it's getting pretty cold up north. Listen, Christmas traditions all across Europe and even in the United States are increasingly being fenced in, policed, renamed, or even shut down entirely, and or attacked with violence. And that raises a question of whether it's just about security or part of a broader push, an attack on Christianity itself. And we're going to be talking about that today. Do me a favor and post in the chat where you're watching from. Love to see that. We got somebody from St. Charles, Missouri. We got people from New York. Let's see. Maryland. Do me a favor. Post where you're watching from there. That helps the algorithm. Make sure that you have liked and subscribed to the podcast too while you're at it. Oklahoma, Everett, Washington, Canada, the nice North Americans, Alaska, Seattle, Ripley, Tennessee, Southern California, Israel. All right. Awesome. We got Greece, people from all over the place. Amy is modding today, and she's coming in from Prague, my youngest daughter. And my middle son, Nathan, is on the back end producing the show today from Armenia. So we are truly worldwide here. Worldwide Holton Global News. Anyway, before we get to the topic of the day, let's say, give you a word from our sponsor, which is Brightcore. Apparently, we've reached a stage of civilization where we're not just polluting the planet anymore. We're also kind of snacking on it. Microplastics are now every place. They're in your food, your water, the air, your hopes, your dreams. Scientists say you're basically chewing through a credit card every week. So congratulations, you're a walking credit card terminal. And the fun doesn't stop there. These particles don't politely stay in your gut. They march right through your intestinal lining. They hop into your bloodstream and start messing with your immune system and your hormones and your brain and pretty much everything else you were hoping to keep functional as you age. They've been linked to metabolic disorders, neurodegenerative diseases, fertility issues, and because why not cancer too? Truly inspiring times here. Avoiding packaged foods is what I thought would save me, but that's actually not true. Eating clean isn't going to save you. Moving to a mountaintop won't even save you because it's in the air. You can't opt out of the plastic buffet, but your gut might actually put up a fight if you give it the right materials. Kimchi one from Brightcore Nutrition is loaded with over 900 probiotic strains. You can see they're on the screen there. The Bacillus pumilus is the one, the real important one, that is proven to break down BPA. That means you're not just helping digestion, you're helping your cells, your brain, your hormones, and maybe the long-term survival of the species. So your body wasn't built to handle plastic, but your gut can do some serious damage control if you give it the right tools. So here's what you do. You get 25% off with code CHUCK today by clicking the link right there on the screen, or going to the phone number if you're feeling especially bold. Call them at 888-927-6882. You get up to 50% off if you call because they like you better on the phone, and you also get free shipping. So let your gut do the job the rest of modern life refuses to do by giving it Kimchi one, and you won't regret it. All right. Thank you very much to our sponsor for today. Microplastics are really a thing, and interesting reading if you ever go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, as I said, Christmas traditions across the globe are kind of under attack, and I just want to give you a little look at what that looks like. There are, I couldn't actually get them all in one video because I kept finding more, but this is a little montage of several different places across Europe and the United States where they've had attacks on Christmas markets or Christmas tree lighting ceremonies or something to do with Christmas in the public square just in the last year or two. Whoop, is that not working? Not sure why. Let's see if the next video shows up better. This was in, oh shoot, I think Germany someplace. This is Brussels. I don't know why the video is not playing. This is an attack in Brussels on a Christmas market. This next one is in Turkey, Istanbul. They were decorating a Christmas tree, and there are a bunch of jihadis that are screaming at the top of their lungs at them. This is in San Francisco, where they attacked the Christmas tree and broke a bunch of the ornaments, whatever they could reach. This is in Paris, where they sprayed paint all over a Christmas tree to protest climate change. It just keeps getting better and better. I'm not sure why the video's not working. This is Turkey, where they just tear down a Christmas tree. There was one in Syria I saw where that happened as well. Actually, a couple. This is, I think, Vienna, where they had free Palestine march, which is exciting. And there's more. I mean, just saw one from New York. Let's see if this one works. What is up with our videos today? Our videos are not playing. I don't know what's going on here. Well, this was attacking policemen in New York at a Christmas event. I'm not sure what's going on here with the video, why the video is not wanting to play. It was playing before we started. Got me. Let's see here. I want to see if this one plays. Nope, that one's not playing either. Okay, so I'm going to try to reload those and see if they'll work. Let's see here. Just a second. Okay, let's see if this works here. Nope, the videos aren't working today, folks. I don't know why. Well, this was in Portland, Oregon, and they basically took the word Christmas out of the Christmas tree lighting ceremony and just called it the tree. And then this girl on the right of the picture there starts chanting Free Palestine and trying to get the crowd to chant Free Palestine with them. So that's exciting. I'm not sure why the videos aren't working here, Nate. I've never had that happen before. All the videos I put in are not working. Yeah, if I reboot the computer, how am I going to stay online? It was working fine, but yeah, I would immediately end the broadcast if I reboot the computer. So thank you. You've been no help at all, Chris. I appreciate you. Chris is my buddy. So all of that's to say, the Christmas traditions all across Europe and the US are having major security issues. We saw 2 Christmas tree lighting ceremonies in the United States where there were shootings. There was one in Chicago and one in North Carolina. They really didn't have to do with Christmas. It was just an excuse for feral youths to get together. And when that happens, they usually start fighting, and somebody pulled out a gun and started shooting. One person died and several people were injured in those shootings just in the United States. A year ago in Magdeburg, Germany, there was a guy who drove through a Christmas market there and killed 6 people and wounded 338 people. And the government to this day refuses to call it terrorism. They refuse to speculate on the guy's motive. They say, oh, maybe he was a right winger, maybe he was he hated Muslims or whatever. Well, it turns out the guy's name was Talib al-Abdulmohsen, and Talib is a 50-year-old Saudi doctor. So I don't know if I buy the idea that he was a big Islamophobe and a right-wing kook, but this is another thing that we're seeing all across the globe, is that when there is terrorist attacks, they don't want to call it a terrorist attack, and especially if it's anything to do with Islam. If it's a Christian terror attack, they would totally do it. The problem is Christians don't do terror attacks, right? So it's very, very uncommon to have a Christian walk into some place and start shooting, or try to run people over or whatever. The city of Paris this year canceled its New Year's Eve concert on the Champs-Élysées due to security fears, despite the deployment of they said last year they deployed more than 6,000 police officers. And now it's triggering a political backlash over basically the government surrendering the public space. We're going to talk about what's causing this and if there's anything that can be done about it, okay? That what they're going to do in Paris is, instead of having a live concert for New Year's, they're going to replace it with a pre-recorded broadcast that I would say is pretty much symbolic of cultural retreat and the state's reluctance to defend any Christian associated events. But I want you to just imagine, is Panama knee deep in WEF nonsense yet? No, it's not. I want you to just imagine what would happen if the shoe were on the other foot, and if there was a Ramadan celebration or a Muslim prayer service that's taking place out in the street or whatever that got disrupted by a bunch of Christians. If they went in there and started, knocking over things or yelling, screaming, Jesus is Lord, or something like that. Can you imagine the press coverage, first of all? And this thing would consume a week of news cycles if something like that were to happen. But you hear almost nothing about it on the news when Muslims or Muslim sympathizers, because what I've noticed is if I look at some of these people, again, Nathan's got a, well, okay, I'll try, Nate. Let's. All right, I'm back. So we're going to see if the video works now. There we go. Now I can show it to you. This is in Germany at a Christmas market. That's exciting. Just what you want at your Christmas market. This is in Brussels. This is Istanbul. Spraying paint all over the Christmas tree in Paris, indoors, mind you. What a bunch of losers. That just frosts my buttons. Yeah, good job, Jack Wagons. These guys just try to chop down the Christmas tree in Turkey. They just rip it down off the Yeah. But we're supposed to be tolerant of their religious stuff. One thing I noticed when I watch these videos is that the a lot of the people that are marching in these Free Palestine videos are actually European. They're not, typical Arab Muslims at all. So that's something interesting. Now, somebody was asking, saying that they're going to Prague. Where was that? There it is. I can't. No gun, just knife says. My wife and I are going to Prague next week. Other than my typical vigilance in public, any specific tips while there, especially within Christmas markets? Well, you're probably not going to have much of a problem in Prague. Why? Because the Czech Republic has not allowed a tremendous number of migrants from Muslim countries into their country. And my daughter lives in Prague right now. Amy's there. And she sent this video from the Christmas market that she visited. And she said it was nice and,
not a lot.
Peaceful, no problems. Unfortunately, my daughter Amy is unable to film anything for more than 6 seconds, apparently, because she sent me a whole bunch of videos and every one of them was like 3 to 5 seconds. And so that's the longest one she made right there. That must be a Gen Z thing. I don't know. But so I don't think you'll have a problem in the Prague Christmas market. And this is one thing that I wanted to get to, is that the problems that we are seeing by and large are in areas that have very high migrant populations. So this is a indication of a much bigger issue, which we're going to get into after we go through the rest of these. So Germany has had to transform their Christmas markets into fortified zones with barriers and checkpoints and surveillance. I've got pictures of one of the, let's see, German Christmas market here, where they've got these barriers up. And, that's to keep people from running people over at these things. Some small towns have had to cancel their markets entirely because there have been multiple Islamist-inspired plots targeting German Christmas markets over the last couple of years that have been foiled. That they weren't able to pull them off, but they got caught planning to attack Christian market or Christmas markets. And that's a really big thing in Europe. If you've never been to a Christmas market in Europe, man, you're missing out. It's a bucket list kind of thing to do. They're really cool to go to one. I would recommend, if you do, go to one in Hungary. Yish in Hungary has a fantastic Christmas market. Go to one in one of the Eastern European countries that doesn't have a huge migrant population, and you'll be safe. Okay. But there was a Christmas market event, and it's not just in Europe, that was canceled in New York. Canandaigua, how do you say that? They canceled their Christmas market after a violent threat, which demonstrates how easy it is to shut down these traditions. Brussels has seen incredible political protests every time they open anything that has to do with Christ or Christmas or Christians or anything like that, because Belgium especially is Belgium and Luxembourg are just overrun with North African migrants. And these people have never been a party to any kind of Christmas celebrations before. And when they see that, it just makes them see red. They just get so mad, and they come out and they start screaming Allahu Akbar in the market. And that just isn't really the spirit of the season. God forbid, right, that we actually have a season where we say to each other, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. That's just horrible. We can't have that. That'd be offensive to say peace on earth, goodwill to men. Oh man, how can we possibly do that? We can't allow that at all. And this is what happened in Great Britain. If I can find the video here. let's see there it is. Check out this video where a guy went into a Christmas market in Great Britain and found out that it's no longer a Christmas market.
So we've just come down to what is described as London's biggest Christmas market. The only problem is they've called it, if you follow me, they've called it a winter come together. So my challenge now is to find anywhere in this market that says the word Christmas, maybe the word Jesus, any indication that this is indeed a religious holiday in the UK. We've got winter warmers at the winter market. Is this a Christmas market?
It's a winter market.
A winter market? What's the difference?
Something to do with religion. They can't say Christmas, but...
So apparently the stall traders here have been told they can't say the word Christmas. Happy Christmas or happy holidays?
Both.
Why both? It's Christmas, isn't it?
It's Christmas, yeah.
Why would you say happy holidays? Which scenario?
Because not everybody celebrates Christmas.
Happy holidays or happy Christmas?
Oh, happy Christmas. Absolutely happy Christmas.
Whoa, hang on a minute. Christmas? You'll offend people saying that.
I know.
Happy holidays?
Happy Christmas.
Winter
I
market?
like that guy. I know.
Christmas market.
This is the first sign of Christmas I've seen in this market. Oh, good man, look at that. He's in the spirit. So what have you got here? You've got mulled gin. Cheers. From the winter market, not Christmas. Oh, that's good. That's good. That gets me in the festive mood.
Yeah, I would imagine mulled gin would get you in the festive mood if you got enough of it in you, that's for sure. Definitely warm you up a little bit. So again, this is not just happening in Europe. It's also happening in the United States. I've got I finally got this one working.
American Heritage Day. I hold
this is in
gratitude
Portland,
and
Oregon.
Truth. The tree that we stand beside was once rooted in its own home.
You know, there's a full-blown genocide happening, live streaming in 4K. You know, I feel like this is the perfect time to bring this up. I feel like this is a perfect time to put them up there and for your guys' prayers for every single one of the Palestinians and all the oppressed peoples.
Okay, they didn't stop there. Another featured speaker, draped in a Palestine flag, broke the crowd out into a Free Palestine chant just moments later.
And so if I could get a free Palestine, free Palestine.
Yeah, that goes right with the spirit of Christmas. Let's support genocidal terrorists for Christmas. That's the way to peace on earth. You know, they had peace in Israel on October 6th. And that peace was broken on October 7th by the people that they're saying that they want to free right there. So the irony is just too much. Now, these developments taken together suggest basically a soft cultural erasure and the security, increasing. Just if you translate that out over time, it literally, we're going to see more and more major events get moved to virtual events or canceled altogether. We're going to see public expression kind of persecuted in the public square. I've already heard there were, during the Obama administration, Obama was saying, or it was his, I don't know, it's a Secretary of Health and Human Services or somebody was saying that, our religion should just be in our hearts and in our homes and in our churches. We should never bring it into the public square. That's wrong, people. Our religion should be on display everywhere we go. And not in a, violent way, not in an offensive way where, when we're going to shove it down your throat. But if I want to put up a Christmas tree, if I want to celebrate the birth of my Savior, I should be able to do it in a free country. I should be able to do that in the public square. And you don't have to agree. You don't have to celebrate Christmas. You don't have to, believe in it at all. But in a free country, people should have the freedom to express themselves, especially in terms of their religion. This is why it's easy to see now that the UK is no longer a free country. If it ever was. I mean, the people there are not citizens, they're subjects. It's not a free country if you can get arrested and put in jail for, misgendering somebody or something like that. That's just not a free country. Now, again, imagine if the roles were reversed and it was the middle of Ramadan, or it was the middle of some other Muslim holiday, and a bunch of Christians came in and crashed the party and started shouting, "Jesus is Lord, Jesus is Lord," or any other religion, right? It's just Christianity that it's okay to do this to. Now, so what I'm just saying is that there's a double standard in how these things are understood, how they're treated. Christian versus other religions, Christian traditions are expendable. So the security concerns are apart from the Christian persecution. I mean, they're a separate thing, because the security concerns are going to continue even if there was no Christian event ever held in public ever again. You're still going to have these security issues because terrorism actually pays. And in many countries around the world, we are stuck with the threat of terrorism on any soft target. And it's really, isn't it sad? Isn't it just sad to think that there's so few places anymore where you can just go and just have a good time and not worry about some crazed wacko pulling out a gun and killing people or running people over or anything like that? Isn't that nuts? And so I'm going to get into this about what we can do about it. But first, I wanted to answer that question about how do I keep myself safe if I do want to go to one of these events, Christmas tree lighting in Times Square, or Christmas market in Magdeburg, Germany, or something like that. How do I keep myself safe? Well, one of the ways you can do that is to go to my son Mason's YouTube channel, where he is putting out videos on how to be better prepared and doing a great job at it. I'm really proud of him. He's putting out some very high quality stuff over there, and it'd be a personal favor to me if you went over and subscribed to his channel. So check that out, Third Monkey Ready on YouTube. The bottom line is to keep yourself safe in an environment like that. The safest thing to do is not to go. The next safest thing is to keep your head on a swivel while you're there, and be very aware, like almost expect something bad to happen. That's what I always tell myself when I am forced to go to some large gathering of people. The older I get, the less I like large crowds of people, for sure. But what I always tell myself is, okay, as I'm walking into the venue, something bad is going to happen tonight. Somebody is going to attack. Something is going to happen. And I'm expecting it, right? And so I'm constantly looking around, watching, thinking about where I'm standing, thinking about how close am I to an exit? What would I do if the attack happened right now? Could I throw a chair through that window? Or is there a door over there I get, next to? Is there a pillar that I can sit next to that would allow me to have some cover if a guy came in and started shooting? All that kind of stuff. It is really unfortunate that we have to start thinking that way. That used to be the realm of special operators and, policemen, but anymore, everybody has to start thinking that way. And it's not about living in fear. It's just about understanding the reality of the times that we live in. Of course, if you have the wherewithal and inclination to get defensive tools and to, train on them and be prepared to use them to make people around you safer wherever you go, then I would highly encourage you to do that. And, figure out what the law says and, stay within the boundaries of the law. If you're going to a Christmas market in Germany, I can promise you one thing: you are not allowed to defend yourself at all. They won't let you defend yourself. You can't. If there's an attack of some kind and you defend yourself and harm the attacker, you go to jail for defending yourself. There is no right to self-defense. And I personally would not live in a country like that. I'm never going to live in a place where I am not afforded the natural right that I have to keep myself and my family safe. I mean, you can't use pepper spray, you can't use a taser, you can't use anything in Germany. Their theory is if we make everybody more vulnerable, it'll make everybody safer, and that obviously is a really bad idea. It's a really bad take. Now, let's talk about what's actually causing this. If you look at the number of the millions of migrants that have come into Europe from North Africa and the Middle East and elsewhere over the last 10 years, and you look at the millions of migrants who came into the United States over the last 4 years, those illegal migrants now make up in the United States about 10% of our population. In many countries in Europe, it's very similar. There are the migrant, either foreign born or the children who are locally born but born to foreign born parents make up 7 to 10% of the population in countries like France and Spain and Germany. And so it's a replacement in many ways. I have to be careful even saying that word because that will get you in trouble with YouTube. But it is a cultural displacement that's taking place. And so you're bringing in all these people that probably have never celebrated a Christmas holiday. They've come from a part of the world where that's just not a thing. And when they see it, it makes them just livid. And they feel like, well, I've got to do something about it. You've also got all these Gen Z sort of atheistic kids that have, they're nuns. They're not anything. They're just atheists. And they get, when you have no ideology that you adhere to, then the strongest ideology around you will seep its way into your life, into your worldview. What I mean is the most powerful ideology in any given place is the one that usually drives the train culturally. And if you're a nun as in I have none in terms of religion, you're just an atheist. Well, that's not an ideology. It's the lack of an ideology. And so a stronger ideology comes in, like Islam, like the radical environmentalism. That's definitely a religion. It's got all the hallmarks of a religion. Those sorts of things are going to assert themselves on your being, on your worldview, and you won't have anything to defend against that. So they will take over. And that's why we see these jackwagons spraying orange spray paint all over the Christmas tree that somebody paid a lot of money to put up as a nice reminder of the spirit of Christmas, which is peace on earth and goodwill to men. They become useful idiots for whatever ideology they fall prey to. And you can see that in the protests that are taking place, Free Palestine, all this garbage, and the environmental stuff. It's just, there you go. There's no two ways about it. Now, keep an eye on the time here. This gets into, well, why did these European countries feel the need to allow all these migrants into their country? Why did Joe Biden feel the need to allow all these migrants into our country? There's been a lot of speculation on that. And really, most people come down on the idea that, Well, they're trying to elect themselves a new people. The government is trying to bring in a bunch of people that will vote them into power, give them the power to vote, and vote them into power in perpetuity. I don't think that's actually the case. I think in the case of Europe, the countries that accepted the most migrants are the ones that have the lowest birth rates. And they realize that we have a mushroom-shaped demographic in our country where there are a lot of old people and no young people like this, but we need the young people to be working and supporting the old people in their old age under the current social welfare programs we have in place. But we just don't have enough because nobody's having kids, because we're aborting all of our babies. I did some research on that. I'll tell you in a minute, it'll blow your mind. They're aborting all the babies. And so we have to bring in migrants to do the work, to pay the taxes so that the elderly people can afford to retire under our social welfare systems. That we just have to do that. I think Joe Biden had a very similar thought in throwing open the floodgates when he came into office. I think that his thought was, if we bring in millions of new workers, those new workers will give the economy a real boost, and it's going to make the economy look like it's doing great. But what we saw was that 70% of the jobs that were created under the Biden administration were taken by migrants. So it was a kind of a false prosperity there. And what this all comes down to is just the absolutely abysmal birth rate that we see all across the globe. As a matter of fact, I've got this video here where this woman is talking about the abysmal birth rate and just how bad it is. Her name is Louise Perry. Take a listen. Yeah, there we go.
The world's population now live in a country where birth rates are not declining. So declining birth rates are the norm. And they started declining, as I said, first in Britain, but it's basically happened everywhere. It seems to just be an inevitable consequence of modernity, that people have fewer children. And there are a whole bunch of reasons associated with this. The one that you'll hear most commonly from London millennials is that it's to do with house prices. And that it is a factor. That it's become more expensive, particularly in big urban centres like London, New York, San Francisco, Tokyo, wherever, to own property and raise children. That's not the only factor, though, because if that were the only factor, then you wouldn't be seeing this extraordinarily global phenomenon of falling fertility absolutely everywhere, regardless of house prices. It does seem to be just something about modernity discourages family formation.
Yeah, well, you know, she acts like that's a big mystery. What is it about modernity that discourages family formation? Well, I would submit to you that it is the liberal abortion laws that we see across most of the Western world. And to prove that, we can go look at, first of all, let's look at the countries in Europe and their birth rate. Remember that 2.1 is what they call replacement level. So you would want, ideally, for your birth rate in your country to be above 2.1. And that way you know that at least you're not going to be declining. But if you get below 1.6, that's called terminal demographic decline. And this is a 1.6 total fertility rate. That's births per woman, right? And that below 1.6 is terminal demographic decline. It means that if you start with 100 people, they're going to have 40 children, and in like 4 generations, they'll be down to like 4 people. So if you have a subculture, a religious group, a minority, or whatever, that's got 100 people left, in 4 generations, there are only going to be 4 people left. And you can't come back from that. I mean, there's a woman would have to have 15 babies. Every woman would have to have 15 babies to get back from 1.6 total fertility rate. And so this is very concerning, because if we look here, the highest birth rate you find in all of Europe and Eastern Europe is Iceland, 1.7. Ireland is the same. Well, I'm sorry, there's one that's higher than that, and that's France, but that's because France is very high, has a very high population of Muslims, and Muslims kill the curve. They skew the curve way out of the norm. So France's total fertility rate right now is 1.8, but again, most of that is Muslim babies being born in France. The UK is 1.5, Netherlands 1.5, Luxembourg 1.4, Finland 1.3, just Switzerland 1.4, Germany 1.4, Italy 1.2. You go into Southern Europe, it gets even lower. Cyprus 1.3, Malta 1.1, Portugal 1.4, Eastern Europe, Poland 1.3, Czech 1.6, Slovakia 1.5, Hungary 1.6. I mean, just on down the list. The Balkan states, Albania 1.4, and they're mostly Muslims. North Macedonia 1.5, Serbia 1.5, Bosnia 1.3. Post-Soviet countries like Russia. Russia's 1.5 and falling. Ukraine 1.2. The war does not help, shockingly. Belarus 1.4, Moldova 1.3, Georgia 1.6, Armenia 1.6. That's the highest that you find in post-Soviet Caucasus countries. It's insane how low it gets. Countries like tiny countries like Monaco and Liechtenstein are below 1.4. San Marino 1.2, Andorra 1.1. Those are micro-states in Europe. So what is the net effect of so little breeding, so little, such a small amount of children being born? Well, what you actually see are prices go up, housing goes up, and that's counterintuitive. Like you go, wait a minute, there's fewer people, so there should be more houses, and it should be that prices go down, but that's not how it works, because the decline doesn't happen across all age groups. It happens with obviously the younger age group. So there are more and more old people as a relation to the total number of people in any country. And the old people don't move very often. They tend to keep the house that they bought way back when and that they've paid off. And so without that mobility, there's not a lot of free housing available. I don't mean free as in inexpensive. I mean free as in open, right? There's not a lot of housing that's available to purchase or even rent. And so what do we see in the United States? Rents and mortgages are out of this world. Of course, fiat currency, government policy with regard to our currency actually exacerbates that problem, because as the government prints more and more and more money and just pumps it into the marketplace out of thin air, that obviously makes inflation go up, and wages typically don't rise at the same rate that inflation does. So it gets harder and harder for young people to get established, buy themselves a home. I'm so proud of that. Two of my four children that are married already have purchased their own homes. That's pretty amazing. But both of them are in the military, and the military, it gives you a leg up on that, makes it easier. Buying a home is just harder today than it was 30 years ago. There's just no two ways about that. And that the reason for that is partially due to the declining birth rate, and partially due to the antidote, the answer that the government comes up with to fix a declining birth rate, which is bringing in more migrants from all over the world. So when you bring in more migrants from all over the world, you get cultural displacement, meaning the cultural traditions that you're used to in your country are going away, and they're getting replaced by different cultural traditions that correspond to the people that are coming into your country. They drive up the cost of housing, the cost of food, They drive down wages when they come in. That makes it just harder for everybody to live. And so what's the answer to this? Well, the real answer is have more babies. Now, most of us, I know that most of my demographic that watch my show are 65 and over. So obviously we're not going to be having more kids, but we need to start doing what we can to make it easier for our children and grandchildren to have kids. And if that even means helping to support them so that they can afford to get into a house, so they can afford to do what they have to do, then we should do what we need to do to try to support our kids in having more kids. I mean, that is the only way to get out of this. And by the way, in the United States, if we all did this, if everybody started, pushing our children to have more kids, what you're going to find is that the overall political climate is going to get cooler and cooler. It's going to get more and more conservative over time. Okay. And so it's not just a matter of we got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, but what I'm pointing out here is that the intentional cultural displacement that we see happening across the globe in Western countries has very real consequences, not the least of which is the fact that we can't have a Christmas market anymore, or we're going to get shot on our Christmas tree lighting ceremony or something like that. Look, we shouldn't live in fear, and I think that if anything, we should plan more public displays of our faith in the public square and just dare somebody to do something about it. We need to normalize that again. It used to be a totally normal thing. As a matter of fact, I wanted to show you this video, but I couldn't get it downloaded in time. One of the things I love about Panama is that Panama is a Christian nation, and they're truly a Christian nation. Their constitution, when it was rewritten in 1991, includes a clause that says all religions are welcome to practice in Panama their faith, so long as they do not offend the Christian faith. So the Christian faith is primary in our country. And there was a video that came out that's going around social media today here in Panama. There's a bridge across the Panama Canal called the Bridge of the Americas. And it's a very, very, very tall bridge. It's really high up. And some guy just was, having a hard time or whatever, and he decided to end it all. And so he crawled up on the supports from one of those on the bridge up above the roadway and was getting ready to jump. And the police and the fire department all came out. They showed up, they closed the bridge, and they went there and they couldn't reach the guy. He was too high up. So you know what the police and the fire department did? All of them, to a man, gathered around, and they had a prayer service right there below the guy that was trying to kill himself, and just out loud, just with their hands raised, cried out to God and begged him to intervene in this guy's life and make himself real to this guy and talk him out of ending his life. And you know what? Their prayers were answered. It worked. And that guy climbed down, and they were able to minister to him and get him what he needed, get him the help he needed, and praise God for that. Can you imagine that happening in New York or Detroit or Chicago or Los Angeles or San Francisco or Portland or Seattle or, any place in the United States? They'd probably get sued if they did that. I just love to see that the United States under Donald Trump is turning back toward Christ in the public square. That Pete Hegseth he doesn't hesitate to pray with the troops. And he doesn't ask them, hey, does anybody have any objections to me praying? No, he's like, I'm going to pray. Please respectfully bow your heads. You don't have to join him in prayer, but it's a respectful thing to do if somebody is praying, to allow them to pray. And it's, you're not going to, catch it. It's not contagious. You know what I mean? So we need to be bolder about our faith. We need to encourage our kids to have as many babies as possible. And we need to spread that message around the globe. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. Moscow, in Russia, the Moscow Oblast has passed a new set of laws that doesn't criminalize abortion, but is trying to discourage it, because they realize that, you know, if you look at their total fertility rate is 1.5 babies per woman. There's over 500,000 abortions in Russia every year. Sex selection abortion is very, very common. I mean, abortion for no reason is very, very common. And if you were able to stop all those abortions and make them all live births instead, guess what? Russia's birth rate would rise to 2.0, just a little under replacement rate. So it's just stopping the abortions would fix the problem for most countries in Europe, in Latin America, in the United States, in Asia. Armenia, when I was there for their prayer breakfast the other day, one of the speakers stood up and pointed this out, just did the arithmetic. He's like, look, this is not politics. This is not, you know, religious ideology. This is simply math. And if Armenians continue to abort their children at the rate, because they abort their children at a rate that's roughly equal to what Russia does. Obviously, it's a much smaller country, so they don't have as many abortions per year, but the rate per capita is the same. And if Armenia continues to abort its children at the rate they are now, there in 107 years, there will be fewer than 1,000 Armenians left on planet Earth. That's the math that goes with this. And so we need to stand against abortion. It is not only an affront to God and to the dignity of human beings everywhere, it not only debases human life, but it literally is helping to kill off our societies. And the road from here to where there's no more people left is not a pretty one. It gets worse and worse and worse economically as that pyramid inverts, and all your people in your country are old people, and there's no young people to pay for it, to pay for things. Okay, so let's move on to our questions. First question is Panama knee deep in WEF nonsense yet? No, it's not. The previous president was a little bigger on the World Economic Forum stuff, but the current president is more like President Trump. Next. Islam is a problem. What's the remedy? Get out there and love the hell out of people by converting them to Christianity. That's the answer. And again, have more babies and teach them to be Christians too. Next. Thank you for the 5 Hot Zone membership gifts. Appreciate that. I know there are a lot of people that will love that. If there was no one on social media to watch this, do you think they would be still doing the same thing? No, I don't. I think that it's the social media breeds bad behavior in people because they see people behaving badly elsewhere, and they say, hey, that looks like fun. Let's go do that ourselves. So I think that social media certainly contributes to the spread of bad behavior, but that can work both ways. We're trying to use social media here on YouTube, here on Facebook, on Twitter, in a good way by encouraging people, by showing people that, you know, actually having a season that's dedicated to peace on earth, goodwill toward men is not such a bad thing, right? And so let's try to use social media in a good way by standing for what's right, no matter what the cost. All right, let's go on the next one. Have you heard on Kinmen County Island in Taiwan? You should travel there someday. It's an island owned by Taiwan on the Chinese mainland. And well, I've been over there and reported on that. I've been to Taiwan. There's some islands off the coast of Japan that are claimed by China, but they're actually Japanese islands called the Senkaku Islands. And I've been down there, you know, in that region and reported on that. But yeah, next. Come on, Nate. Step it up. I thought this map said Jesus was Palestinian, this mop. So they don't want Christmas. Open your eyes, world. Yeah, Jesus was not Palestinian. Jesus was a Jew. I mean, it's very clear throughout the scriptures. Jesus was a Jew. He was not a Palestinian. Heidi says, do you think we should be concerned about Christmas markets in smaller cities? Increasingly so, yes. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't go. It just means that you should be prepared to get out quickly. You should maybe carry a tourniquet in your bag. I carry a tourniquet with me everywhere. And they're so small and light, but you can literally save somebody's life if they get shot or hurt with a tourniquet. You just got to know how to use it and know when to use it, when not to use it. So it takes a little bit of training, but have a trauma kit in your car or something like that, and just be ready to get behind cover or protect yourself and your family if you go into an environment like that. Thank you, Bolo. Please consider interviewing Raymond Ibrahim, Egyptian Coptic Christian background expert on Islamic expansionism. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Actually, Amy, could you write that down and see if you can get a hold of that guy? If anybody has contact info for that guy, let me know, and I would love to interview him. That'd be great. Is it time for the Knights Templars to return to Europe? Knights Templars being the Crusaders going in and massacring people wholesale. No, you can't kill your way to Christianity, and I think the Knights Templars proved that. They did push out the Moors from Spain after 800 years or something like that, and so there is that. But I don't think we live in a world today that would go for such an idea. Like we just got to go kill all those people that we don't agree with. That's just not possible. Next. Do you think the nuns are doing it as a self-protection measure, almost like a personal neutrality, hoping they'll escape persecution? Perhaps. I think that they're just indoctrinated into that. I've been reading a book from one of the hostages that made it out of Gaza after more than a year in captivity. And one of the things he points out is that as he spoke Arabic, so he got to know his captors pretty well. And he was just amazed at how unbelievably brainwashed those guys are to hate Jews. And they could not believe. They kept saying, wait, you're a Jew, but you're so nice to him. He'd be like, man, we wish more Jews were like you. And he's like, the Jews are like me, but they wouldn't believe it because they were brainwashed that the Jews were evil and they hated them and they wanted to kill all Palestinians. And obviously that's not the case. But there you go. Klamath River Media says, do you think Islam's anger toward Jews, Christians in the world goes back to the feud between Isaac and Ishmael? Well, I guess you could trace it back to that. I think in modern day hatred, there have been many times throughout history in many places where Jews and Muslims lived together and didn't have too many problems. You can look at Lebanon, for example. You can look at in Syria and Iraq. There've been Christians there for a long time. And in Israel, before it was the state of Israel, there were lots of Jews and Arabs all mixed together, living together, and mostly in peace. I think the violence that we see today is very much politically motivated and is very much driven by the end times. So let's go on. Next, Mr. G. Popeye says, do you know that Hamas attacked Israel on Vladimir Putin's birthday, October 7th? Do I think it's a coincidence? Yeah, I do think it's a coincidence. I don't think they were like, what day should we attack Israel? Oh, well, we could do it on Sukkot, which is their Christmas. It's their most sacred holiday, and or second most sacred holiday, something like that. But where there's not going to be anybody on duty, everybody's home celebrating. It's Shabbat. That's. Do you think that they passed all that up? No. We want to do it that day because it's Vladimir Putin's birthday. No, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. They did it because it was Shabbat and it was Sukkot and everybody was gone, and so they knew they wouldn't have a lot of people to fight to get into the country. Next, Cheddar Pepper Prepper says, were the politicians getting kickbacks if they allowed them to flood into our countries? There have been some rumors that there were some kickbacks, like where politicians were invested in the pipeline of facilitators that brought these migrants into Europe or into the United States. We've seen where Colombian, for example, politicians were getting kickbacks from the cartels as they were moving people into Panama across the Darien Gap. So there is some evidence of that, but it's hard to say for sure. Josh says, did you get your beard inspiration from American Chopper's TV show? No, they got their inspiration from me. I did it first. Next, your thoughts on Ukraine peace plan, Richard? That's completely off the topic of today's live, so I don't want to get into that right now. We're already over an hour, so I'll have to do a whole podcast on that. Just stay tuned, and we'll talk about that in depth at some point in the future, maybe tomorrow. Chris Anderson says, do you think that Bill Gates' reversal on climate change has anything to do with the population dynamic change? Bill Gates has made it clear. He's spoken, done TED Talks, saying that the ideal number of people that should live on planet Earth should be no more than 500 million people. So he believes that 7.5 billion people need to die off. And I think that he is investing in ways that will bring that about. Number one, abortions and birth control. He and his family are very invested in the abortion industry, very invested in birth control worldwide. And I think someday the remnants of societies will look back and say, birth control, making erotic liberty higher in the, pantheon of freedoms than your civic duty to breed and grow your country, was the worst mistake we ever made on planet Earth. It resulted in, but again, it's the abortion issue that would be easier to fix. Chris Anderson says, I heard Trump is attempting to set up savings account for children being born legally in the United States. Yeah, he just announced that yesterday. These Trump savings accounts for kids born this year in the United States and going forward to 2028. The first 25 million children get, and that open an account will get $1,000 from the government to seed their account, and then their parents can add $5,000 per year to that account. And that means that by the time they're 18, they'd have, this all gets invested in an S&P 500 index fund. They would have something like $180,000 to go to college or buy a house or do whatever they wanted to with. It's not limited. So yeah, Connie and I are talking about opening those accounts for all of our grandchildren next year and trying to fund them because anybody can fund them. It doesn't have to be the parents. Lori Hager says, do you believe that THIA is going to truly happen in America? If so, when? Soon? I'm not sure what THIA stands for. I don't know what your question. I don't know what you're asking. Sorry. Next. Is it true that America requires abortion freedom for our support? We have in the past, under the Biden administration and the Obama administration, required that any country that wants to get aid from us, within reason, there are limits to that, but for the most part, has got to sign on to the woke agenda, DEI, AIDS, stuff, and birth control and abortion and gay marriage. Okay, all that stuff, that all came with it. That's why we saw gay pride flags being flown from U.S. embassies all around the world, even in countries where it's illegal to be gay. That was extremely offensive. And fortunately, Donald Trump has put a stop to that. Thank you, Donald Trump. Sooner or later. Still don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. Josh says, if they're going for opportunity, why tear down the country you're going to? Well, they're not tearing it down the country. They're just tearing down the institutions and the traditions of that country, not realizing that those things are tightly woven with what makes that country they went to, whether it was Germany or France or Italy or Spain or the United States, worth going to. What they don't understand is that Christianity is what made those countries what they are and what made them so desirable in the first place. A peaceful, stable democracy where there's rule of law, that all came about because of Christianity. You can literally watch it happen when you study history throughout the Dark Ages. As Christianity moved across Europe, the concept of liberty moved across Europe with it. The concept of forgiveness, the concept of redemption, of freedom. They didn't have those concepts before Christianity showed up. And to this day, you go to a place like Afghanistan, they don't have any idea what the concept of forgiveness is. They don't have any idea what the concept of personal liberty is, because those are eminently Christian concepts. Okay? Michael says, is it true that thousands of Iranians are converting to Christianity? Yes, it is true. Iran has the fastest growing population of Christians on planet Earth, according to some studies that I've been shown. Rob Whittle says, hey, Chuck, if you spend your Christmas in England, UK is safe in 90% of the cities. UK bobbies with no guns, de-escalating tactics can fully protect folks until somebody shows up with a knife or a rental car and starts running people over. Rob, I'd have to disagree with you on that. I think I have done reports. Actually, I did a report one time when there was a ramming attack, and the rammer, it was a Muslim, jihadi. This was, I think, right on like the Tower Bridge or something, so right near there. This guy, ran over like 40 people, and he went right by a couple policemen that had just had to hide because they didn't have a gun. They couldn't stop him. The only thing that stops a stabby, runny overy, or shooty bad guy is somebody with a gun that can stop him. That's the only thing. So how do you de-escalate with a jihadist who is bent on murdering as many people as possible? And that's why we've seen so many terror attacks taking place. And I know that that is not representative of all of England. I've been around England. I've been around Scotland. I've been around Ireland. I know that there are plenty of places that are idyllic and wonderful. And I actually love those countries as far as their natural beauty and the friendliness of the English people and that sort of thing. But you can't convince me that it's a good idea to not even let your police people have a gun. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it invites, in today's day and age, terror. It invites terror attacks, and it does not make people safer in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so birthrate crisis. WW says, yes, fight against abortion. Yes. However, because Jesus is returning soon, big picture, could this be God's mercy to reduce suffering for potential little ones? That's not our mandate. It's not our mandate to try to play God and say, we're going to stop having children because the times are short. We don't know how short the times are. Every generation has believed that they were the last ones since Christ was here the first time. And yet here we are 2,000 years later. Our mandate in the Bible is to be fruitful and multiply and to redeem the world around us. That requires having children. And so I hear where you're coming from, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think we should think that way. Maranatha 911 says, why does Trump seem so blind to the true intentions of Erdogan regarding Israel? Trump just really, really likes strong men. He has a bromance with everybody from Kim Jong-un to even the phone call he had the other day with Nicolas Maduro. He said, "Oh, I kind of like that guy. You know, he was pretty friendly." So he has some spectacularly terrible advisors who are really trying to lean America more toward the axis of evil than toward our traditional allies in the West. And it's because I think that we have become so fed up with this woke nonsense that we see all across the West that we're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. No, there's still something worth saving in those alliances that we have with Western Europe, etc. But that, you know, the fact that we hate globalists, we hate, you know, woke, DEI, all that garbage, LGB, HDTV, or, you know, whatever. We hate all that stuff, and, you know, painting everything in Europe as being, you know, infected with that, and so there's nothing worth saving in Europe, is a mistake, I believe. And you know, Russia is capitalizing on those sentiments by trying to portray itself as Russia is a Christian nation. You're hearing this very heavily on social media right now because Russia is pushing it out to all of their influencers, all the people they're paying, and then it's getting picked up and retweeted all over the place. Things like, you know, Russia is the most Christian nation in Europe. That's not true. There are more people that go to mosque every Friday in Europe, in Russia, than there are people who go to church on Sundays in Russia. Russia has the highest abortion rate of any country in Europe, I believe. And you can't. That's not that's not compatible with the claim that they are the best Christian country in Europe. Okay. Thank you, PC. Appreciate that. 20 pounds sterling. That's very nice. Let's see. James says, do you foresee a civil war within all these recent multicultural countries, including America, between generational inhabitants and new arrivals? I think, I've said this already before, but I really think that the civil war in America has already started. You know, every war looks different. I've covered wars for more than 2 decades across the globe, and every war has its own flavor. So no 2 wars are the same. So Civil War II is not going to look like Civil War I. It's going to look very, 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 very different. And I think it's going to look a lot like what we see in America today, with people attacking Christmas tree lighting ceremonies and, you know, that sort of thing, the Antifa jack wagons and all that. So I think that's what it looks like. And that will just continue to get worse because the politicians actually have a vested interest in keeping us apart from each other, pulling us apart further and further, so they can weaponize that, you know, rage porn against one another and get us at each other's throats. RV Restoration says, Paul said it's better women serve the Lord and not marry so they can serve God without distractions. He said that several times in the New Testament. Second, who's going to pay for more kids? Well, Paul actually said that in the context of saying, I know that most of you won't. Most of you won't be able to stay single like I am. And it's okay to marry. There's nothing, he doesn't say anything, there's anything wrong with getting married. So, you know, he's talking specifically about the kingdom of God and serving the kingdom of God. And it would be great if everybody just dedicated their lives to serving God. But he realizes that that's not realistic. And I think in the context of the New Testament, he certainly is not anti-marriage or anti-family. There's no, I mean, there's no 2 ways about that. Okay. And who is going to pay for more kids? This is where I just want to address that, because the idea that children are super expensive and you got to have a really good job before you start having kids, because man, they're so expensive. You just can't afford to have kids. You know, that has not been the sentiment up until about 15 minutes ago on planet Earth. For most of human existence, children were seen as an asset to your balance sheet, not a liability. That's because children were made to work. Children were made to help out. Children were made to do productive things around the house until they got out on their own. And then they started having children and doing the same with their children, having their children be productive and not just treating them like pets that just sit on the couch and don't do anything, be cute, don't do anything dangerous. And so I think that comes from a misguided sense of what children are there for. It is our job as parents to teach our children to be productive. And if your kid has got his head stuck in a phone all day long or playing video games on his computer or whatever, he is not being productive. And you're failing your children by allowing them to have so much screen time. So that's why we're putting together a summer camp for next year for young men that will get them off their screens, teach them some real world skills that'll make them better human beings and disciple them at the same time. That's going to morph into a boys' academy. That'll be a year-long course for guys right out of high school. And so stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about that a lot more in the months to come. Folks, do me a favor and go to chuckholton.com. If you like this content, if you like the news from a Christian perspective, and you want more of it, you can get a lot more of it over at chuckholton.com. We've got documentaries coming out. You get early access to some of our videos, to my books, to all sorts of things. Plus, you can get merch over there. You can't get a Magoo's Tacos. That's available only here in Panama. You got to come on our Panama trip. We do have a tour going to Panama coming up in April. And so you can join us if you've been thinking about maybe retiring overseas, or if you've been thinking about what it's like to be an expat, or if you just want to get away from the winter and go somewhere nice and tropical for a few days, come on our trip to Panama with us. We have a few slots left, and it's low key, it's laid back, it's not real expensive, and we just have a really great time together. So if you want to go, send an email to info@holtonnews.com and we'll send you the information. All right. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you. We'll see you next time.